Civil War.
So I was trying to get them out.
That's when Lincoln got assassinated.
Oh yeah, ouch.
So, what are you guys studying about?
Grandpa.
Hello.
We're studying the Civil War.
No way, my great-grandfather was in the Civil War. He has a journal that's been passed down from generation to generation. I could tell you all about it if you'd like.
Okay, alright.
Alright, let's go out to the fireplace. I'll be right up.
Alright.
So, are you guys ready?
Yes, Grandpa.
Alright, let's see. The war started in the spring of 1861. This was when the Confederates fired at Fort Sumter, which was the first firing of the Civil War. Major Robert Anderson was the commander at Fort Sumter. He knew he could not keep the fort if the Confederacy were to attack. General Jefferson Davis decided to attack the fort. It fell within 2 days. This was a test for Abraham Lincoln. He had to choose whether or not to defend the fort. He chose only to supply it with food. After the fort fell, Lincoln ordered a blockade of southern ports, called up state militias, and increased the military budget. Next was the first Battle of Bull Run. This was actually the first battle of the war. Here, President Lincoln ordered General McDowell to move the Union troops into Virginia and take Richmond. On July 21st, they were confronted by the Confederate Army under General Beauregard, southwest of Washington at Manassas, which was the start of the battle. The Union was about to win, but Beauregard and Johnston's reinforcements drove back the assault. People thought this was going to be the only battle of the war, so they sat on the sides and had a picnic while watching the battle. The North had advantages in almost everything. There were only one or two things that the South had advantages in. Those were the amount of cotton produced and the amount of free men in the military service. In all other aspects, such as total population, factory production, railroad mileage, iron production, farm acreage, wheat production, and wealth produced, the North had all the advantages. Jefferson Davis was unable to hold the Confederacy together. He lacked Lincoln's persuasive skills and could not unify the South. He wanted to decide every detail for himself, and he was not a good listener. Are you listening, kids?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That was enthusiastic. For the war in Northern Virginia, the North had a strategy. It was known as the Anaconda Plan. This plan called for blockading southern ports, capturing Richmond, and capturing the Mississippi River to cut off Texas, Arizona, and Louisiana from the rest of the Confederacy. At this time, George McClellan led the Union troops in Virginia. The Battle of Antietam was fought on September 17, 1862. George McClellan led the Union troops, and they forced the Confederate troops, led by Robert E. Lee, to the other side of the Potomac River. 5,000 people were killed in this battle, and 19,000 were wounded, and neither side won. This battle is known today as the bloodiest battle of the war. Then, General Grant led the Union forces at Shiloh Church, Tennessee in April of 1862. The Confederates fell back after 2 days of fighting, and Grant captured the church. This gave the Union forces access to the Mississippi River. When Quantrill's raiders attacked Lawrence, Kansas in August of 1863, the Indians sided with the Confederacy. In March of 1862, Lincoln proposed that the states begin the process of freeing their slaves, and they would be relocated to Haiti or Panama. After the Battle of Antietam, Lincoln announced the Emancipation Proclamation, which goes into effect January 1st, 1863. Lincoln made this part of the election of 1864, and then, in 1865, the Union ratified the 13th Amendment, which banned slavery. After the Emancipation Proclamation, Lincoln supported the use of black soldiers. The units were all black, but led by white officers. The Confederacy threatened to execute any black soldiers and white officers that led them. The U.S. Sanitary Commission donated medical supplies to the military. Women like Clara Barton and Dorothea Dix became nurses during the war. Women weren't welcomed at first, and even by the end of the war, most of the nurses were still men. In May of 1863, the Battle at Chancellorsville occurred. This is where Stonewall Jackson led the Confederacy to the victory there. During this battle, he was mortally wounded. He was accidentally shot by one of his own men. Later, he had his arm amputated, and then he got pneumonia and died on May 10, 1863. Then, in July of 1863, the North won the major battles of Gettysburg and Vicksburg. At Gettysburg, July 1st through 3rd, Lee lost 28,000 men, while the Union only lost 23,000. On July 4th, Vicksburg, Mississippi, fell to Grant, and the South is still bitter today. Later, Grant was appointed head of the Union forces. Then, Sherman marched across Georgia to the coast. Sherman practiced total war. On September 2nd, 1864, Atlanta fell. In January of 1865, Sherman ordered 400,000 acres of southern land to be given to slaves in 40-acre plots. In the election of 1864, Abraham Lincoln and General George McClellan ran, Lincoln being Republican and McClellan being Democrat. Lincoln won 55% of the votes. While Sherman marched across Georgia, Grant fought Lee in Northern Virginia. Grant was waging a war of attrition, and the South couldn't keep up. They even considered arming slaves. Then, Lee retreated to Appomattox Courthouse in Virginia. On April 9, 1865, Lee surrendered to Grant there. Lee's men were given 3 days of food and sent home. Jefferson Davis was captured on May 10th on his way back to Texas. Soon after the war, on April 14, 1865, Lincoln was assassinated while watching a play at Ford's Theater in Washington. He was shot in the back of the head by John Wilkes Booth, who was a Confederate supporter. The only reason Booth got into the presidential area of the theater was because Lincoln's guard had gone to the bar next door, leaving the door unattended. After Booth shot Lincoln, he attempted to jump on to the stage, but his spur got caught on some cloth, and he fell and broke his ankle. So, what do you think of the Civil War, kids?
I think we're gonna ace this test. Thanks, Grandpa.
Anytime, kids.